Hello, and again, welcome to Banff. In the last episode, I talked you through all the tips you need to plan your visit to Banff, including the costs, where to stay, how many days, when to visit, all of those things. But in this episode, I'm going to talk about the fun stuff, which is what can you do in Banff during your visit. Since this park is so big, I made a list of the 12 must-see places that you should visit. So let's start. The first and most popular of all, I would say, is Lake Louise. This lake has a blue tone that I have never seen in any other place that I have visited. And it's going to be 60 kilometers away from the town of Banff, but it is said that it has this specific turquoise color thanks to the water that comes from the glaciers mixed with what it's called the rock flower. This lake is surrounded by mountains, and it also has in front the Fairmont Hotel, which is like a castle. So the views that you will get here are spectacular. It is said that the name of this lake comes after Princess Louise Carolina Alberta, who was the daughter of Queen Victoria. But this place is definitely a must-see when you go because it is as spectacular. To get there, you can take a shuttle from the city of Banff, or you can also take a shuttle from the city or town from Lake Louise. But I think the easiest way to get there is by car if you already rented a car. At the lake, you'll find parking, and in the winter, you don't have to pay or you'll have to pay lower fees, but in the summer, the parking will cost you $37.5. And the good thing is that you can stay there all day. So the advice that I would give you is arrive early in the morning to ensure that you have a space and then stay long enough to make it worth it because the parking is already going to be expensive, but as you can stay as long as you'd like, I think this is going to be a great option for using all your time wisely at the lake. My favorite activity to do in this lake is canoeing, and I think it was one of the most beautiful experiences that I have done in all of my trips. Again, because of this stunning color of the lake, and I could get so close and it would never stop being this blue. So the only bad thing about canoeing is going to be the price, because 1 hour of canoeing will cost you $165 before tax. But the truth is, it was totally worth it. And I would do it again. Otherwise, if you don't want to spend that much money in canoeing or you can't, you can just stay at the shore of the lake or walk around the lake while enjoying these gorgeous views. You will find that there are going to be several trails in this area, and these are going to lead me to my next recommendations because I'm going to tell you about 4 other places that you should visit taking all of these trails. The first one is going to be a lake called Mirror Lake. So if you search for it in Google Maps, you'll find it very easy to find, or you can also just read all of the trail signs and it will lead you straight through it. But it is a lake that's basically going to be close to Lake Louise, and to get there you must walk approximately 2.7 kilometers, and you'll have an elevation gain of 300 meters. The lake is especially known for having this calm surface that will reflect all the mountains around it, and hence its name. But I think it's also a visit that you should add, even if you're close to Lake Louise, because it's a good spot to rest before continuing on the trail. After Mirror Lake, if you keep walking for a little less than 1 kilometer, you're going to find Lake Agnes. And then over there will be like a restaurant kind of that's called Lake Agnes Tea House. So this is a historic tea house that's located next to this lake and was originally built in 1901 by the Canadian Pacific Railway, and it was supposed to be a shelter for all the hikers that were coming up in these mountains. But this place is impressive because it offers over 100 varieties of tea as well as other food in hot chocolate or other stuff that's delicious, but all of the supplies are transported on foot. So everyone who works here has to walk 2 hours from Lake Louise with all of their food and the ingredients just to prepare everything for you at the top. So I think visiting them, it's also a way of showing support for all the work that they're doing. And if you want to show even more support, they are asking for volunteers that may want to bring down one of their small bags of trash because they get everything up, but then also they have to get everything down. So if you want to help them, you can carry a small bag of trash and just put it down when you arrive back to Lake Louise. But either way, I think this place is very, very nice, and I think it's highly recommended, especially if you want to, again, stop and recharge before continuing on this path, if you decide. So if you continue on this trail, you will find that there are two different routes that you can take. One is going to be for small beehive, and the other one is going to be for big beehive. And so both of these ones are going to be leading to beehive-shaped rock formations that offer panoramic views of Lake Louise and the valley. Little Beehive is going to be closer to Lake Agnes at just under 1 kilometer, and Big Beehive is going to be about 1.3 kilometers away. If you go to Big Beehive, the view will be better because it's from a little higher up, but the trail here becomes a little steeper and also a little bit more difficult. So I don't recommend this trail if you're in not a good physical condition. And also being higher, this is going to be a trail that you can only do between July and September because otherwise it will be full of snow. But I think it's worth it because it will give you incredible views of the lake. And then the trail doesn't stop here. If you want to go even further, you can continue walking 1 more kilometer and reach Devil's Thumb. This trail is the most difficult one of them all, and it reaches an elevation of around 2,500 meters above sea level total, but it will have very steep sections and very difficult routes to traverse. It is very rocky, so it can feel almost like an easy rock climbing. But truth be told, this was a trail that I wanted to do, but I didn't do because when I arrived to the others, I was too tired. But I did Google it and it looked stunning, and it gives you some spectacular views of Lake Louise. So if you have a strong physical condition and you are willing to do it, I do recommend that you should take it. But if you're too tired, you can always stop and not continue. If you decide to go all of the way up to Devil's Thumb, the entire trip starting from Lake Louise up till there would take you about 4 or 5 hours with all of the stops that I told you, depending on your pace and also depending on how much you're stopping, by the way. But if you add all of this time going up plus the time going down, it could be around 7 or 8 hours in total. So if you want to visit all of these places, I would say you should give it a full day so you can do these trails and not be rushed. And I'll repeat again all of the places that you should visit. So first, it's Lake Louise, then you should go to Mirror Lake, then you're going to do Lake Agnes, then Big Beehive or Small Beehive, and finally you'll do Devil's Thumb. So all of those 5 places are going to be in the same trail that you can do, but it would take you about 1 full day to visit all of them. And well, the next plan that I'm going to suggest, it's not anymore in Lake Louise, it's going to be a different lake, but it's also one of the must-dos if you visit Banff, and it's going to be Moraine Lake. And this is the lake from all of the postcards. I would say that this is probably the most famous lake in all of Canada. Again, because of its incredible blue color, but also because it's in the middle of the Valley of 10 Peaks. And so if you're Googling for Banff, you will find only the results Lake Moraine. When you search for National Parks of Canada, again, all of the results will be Lake Moraine because basically this is going to be the postcard lake. It is so beautiful that it was even in the bill that was for 20 Canadian dollars until 1979. But hey, even though it's very touristic and it may sound cliche, it is a must-see. The bad thing is that for accessing it, private vehicles are prohibited, so you have to take a shuttle to get there. There are a couple options that are authorized by the government to get in, but there is only one agency that does the shuttle to see the sunrise, and it's called Lake Moraine Bus Company. In the description, I'll also drop the link, but I recommend you to do this ride at sunrise. The bus is going to leave at around 5 a.m. from the Samson Mall, which is a mall in Lake Louise Village, and it will give you enough time to get into Lake Moraine, find a spot, and watch the sky and the stars as they begin to lighten up until the sun rises and then it reflects on the top of the mountains, painting them orange and pink and giving you one of the most spectacular views that you can see. When I went, I liked it so much that I went back another day at sunrise just to be able to see that landscape again. So this is a shuttle that I think it's 100% worth it, and I do think that you should include it in your Banff trip no matter how many days you're staying. And although the shuttle is not cheap, I think it's an experience that you will always remember. Once in Moraine, after the sunrise, you can also decide to stay over here a little longer. And you can either take a canoe ride on the lake, which will also be a little expensive, or you can just go hiking, which will be free. The easiest trail is going to be just walking around the lake, but then you will find other types of trails. There's a moderate one called Consolation Lakes, and this was going to be about 8-kilometer round trip. And then there's also a very difficult trail that's called the Sentinel Pass, which will be almost 12 kilometers round. So one good thing about the shuttle that I took is that you can contact them and ask them to have a later scheduled return time. So you can decide to return back to Lake Louise Village whenever you want, and they will schedule it for you. So you can have the freedom to stay here for as long as you want. Just be sure to check their schedules so you don't miss their last bus back. But also, in case you want to do that, I did it. I extended my stay a little bit longer, just 1 hour, and this gave me enough time to walk around Moraine Lake and then come back. The seventh place that I'm going to recommend you to visit in Banff, it's actually going to be a scenic road. So it means that this is going to be a very, very nice road to drive in. And it's the one that is going to connect Banff with Lake Louise Village. This road is called the Bow Valley Parkway, and it is 48 kilometers where you can access several trails and viewpoints. And the good thing about this is that you may also find more wildlife on this road. The speed limit is going to be 60 kilometers per hour, as there are going to be several animals crossing this road as well. So you have to be careful with them. And actually, even in March and June, they tend to close the road at night just to protect the wildlife in this area, because many animals are coming out at night after the winter and they are exploring around to see where they should be settling in. So if you're lucky, in this road you might be able to see deers, bears, or even moose. And if not, it's also going to be worth driving through here for having some incredible views of the mountain and the nature. And also, if you're driving through here, you will get to my 8th recommendation, which is going to be Johnston Canyon. This is a canyon that has 2 waterfalls that also have turquoise water, and it is a very easy and beautiful trail. The hike to the lower falls is going to be 2.2 kilometers round trip, and the hike to the upper falls is going to be 5.2 kilometers round trip. So these are going to be 2 hikes that are fit for most people, but if you want more, you could also do a hike to another place that is called Inkpots, but this one's going to be longer and it will be around 12 kilometers round trip. I only walked until the upper falls, so like this middle point, and this trail I would highly recommend because it was very beautiful, very easy, but the bad thing is that since it's beautiful and easy, it will also be very crowded. So I recommend doing it early in the morning to avoid the crowds and enjoying the nature a little bit more. My recommendation number 9 is going to be visiting the Vermilion Lakes, which are going to be 3 shallow lakes just west of the town of Banff. They are going to be accessible by road, and they will offer an excellent photo opportunity, especially at sunrise or sunset. Here, I also saw many people kayaking and canoeing, so if you want to enjoy lakes that are near the town of Banff, this is going to be the closest option that you have. And while talking about the city, my 10th tip is of course going to be spending some time exploring the town of Banff, especially its main street that's called Banff Avenue. During the summer, they sometimes close the streets and it becomes a pedestrian street where you can walk and enjoy the view of the cabins with mountains in the background, making you think that you kind of arrived into a Switzerland village in the Alps. but you will find that most restaurants here will be very expensive, but they will be very tasty. When I went, I visited a restaurant called Brazen, and I went during their happy hour so I could eat more food at good prices. And I really liked it, especially because I could try some of the local things like bison. But I would suggest taking a few hours to explore, take pictures at Banff sign, and just walk like a flaneur through all of the streets of this little and quaint town. My next recommendation is going to be visiting a viewpoint that is close to Banff, and you can find it in Google Maps as the Banff Viewpoint or the Mount Norquay Lookout. You can go there by car, and it would take you around 10 minutes from the center of Banff, or you can also walk up to it, and it would take you around an hour and a half or 2 hours because it's going to be 5 kilometers one way. This is going to be a viewpoint that lets you see the entire city and the mountains that surround it, and I think it's very nice, and it was also worth it for me. Many people also choose to take the gondola to have this panoramic views of Banff and the mountains, but personally, I didn't take the gondola because it seemed too expensive for what it was, and I think all of the other viewpoints give you similar views for free. So I would suggest visiting this ones, but again, I'm only recommending things that I did. I can't tell you not to visit the gondola because I didn't see it, so I can't be sure of what I'm missing. But if you want something for free, you can just take this viewpoint and it will still be very beautiful. And finally, my last tip would be to visit Lake Minnewanka. This is the longest lake in all of the Banff Park, and it's located around 5 kilometers northeast of the town of Banff. Its name, Minnewanka, means water of the spirits in the Stony Nakota language. And in this lake, you can cruise, you can fish, you can also hike the surrounding area. One of the most interesting things about this lake is that underneath it, there is a submerged village, kind of like in Atlantis, but it was flooded in 1941 after the construction of a dam. I estimate that all of these things that I've been telling you about, these 12 activities, you can visit them in 4 or 5 days. If you only decide to travel to Banff for a weekend, so 2 or 3 days, I would tell you that you should only visit the town, Lake Louise, without all of the trails, and Moraine Lake, because these 2 lakes are the ones that you definitely cannot miss, and they are the most famous thing in this park for a reason. Then, if you have more time and you're staying more days, you can add the Bow Valley Parkway, the Johnston Canyon, and even if you have more days, I would add the Lake Minnewanka and all of the trails around Lake Louise. In my next episodes, I will take you on a tour to other nearby parks in this area, which, although they're not as popular, they are not far behind in terms of their incredible landscapes. I hope that after listening to this episode, you know about the places you should include in your visit to Banff. If you like this episode, please share it with a friend who loves to travel and give me a review, because this helps me tremendously and it motivates me to give you more travel advice. Tell me in the comments if there's anything that surprised you about this episode, and I hope to see you next week to continue exploring Canada's natural beauty. Safe travels!